Hi everybody, my name's Tara and I am an Army veteran. I served in Iraq for a year and I was stationed in Germany while I was in. And besides my training in Fort Leonard Wood, I was actually never stationed stateside. And I have now been out for a lot of years. I signed up for 4 years and got out in 2006. So yeah, it's been a while. And of course, being in the military was one of the best things that I ever did. It changed the whole trajectory of my life. With that, there was a lot of tough stuff that came from those experiences. And there's been a lot of years of work that I've had to do in groups, just like what you guys are doing, and on my own, and a combination of both. And I wish that I could have been with you, and I wish I was actually with you right now, but this is sort of the best case scenario with how far away I've actually moved. So it's nice to meet you, sort of, and hopefully one day we'll all be together in the same place and can talk and laugh and swap stories. But for now, I just want to be able to talk to you about some of my experiences with writing. And I actually did study writing at Colorado State. I have a master's in creative nonfiction, and I have been working on my memoir for a while now. And I don't have a title. I'll probably find one towards the end of the process. And it's about my experiences in the military, sort of starting around the time that I decided to sign up with my recruiter. And then I know that I'm going to end my story in Ireland, and there will be a mix of sort of everything that's happened in between, getting me from one place to the other. And I know that not all of you would consider yourselves writers. I do, and I want to talk about Morning Pages and this book that really helped me with my work and opened my eyes to so many things. But just know that even if all you do is journaling or these morning pages that I'm going to talk about, I still think that makes you a writer. But even if you don't think about it in those terms, whatever it is that you do is a creative outlet, something that helps give your voice power and gives you just a way to express yourself. I think that what I'm going to share with you is helpful for anybody. So you don't have to be writing a book for this to be effective. I just think this is good life stuff. So the book that I'm referring to is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I have my copy with me and it's getting extremely beat up over time. I've been reading it and working through it for the last year already. And it's actually a 12-week program, but I just kind of keep taking my time with each one and visiting it, stepping away, and then revisiting it as needed. And it's one of those books that you can come back to again and again. And as you grow and change, it'll mean something different as time goes on. And so Morning Pages are Julia Cameron's idea. And so just so you know, I'm not trying to pass this off as my own, but I just found it to be so effective in my life that I wanted to pass this on to all of you. So this isn't even something that I studied when I was in grad school or in undergrad, which I also studied writing at that level. So it's interesting to me that I was actually all done with my formal studies in writing, and then this book came into my life, actually through my cousin, who is a professional musician and singer-songwriter, and he could not stop talking about it, especially when I was talking about how much big magic affected me, and he said, well, there would be no big magic if it wasn't for The Artist's Way. So that's how I came to find it, and I just want to read to you just a bit from it, and hopefully you'll have copies of this section of the book. And then if you choose to go through the whole Artist's Way program, that would be awesome, but you definitely don't have to. I think that the morning pages are still so amazing and helpful just on their own. So to start, Julia Cameron says that the morning pages are 3 pages of longhand writing, strictly stream of consciousness. She has this in italics, so I'm gonna read it accordingly. There is no wrong way to do morning pages. So just keep that in mind, because if you're anything like me, there's always a right and a wrong way to do things. And if your military background is anything like mine, if you don't do things the right way, it can go to an extreme of people actually dying. And so we take all of that kind of stuff so seriously, but this is really trying to get you out of your own way and let go of that life or death sort of thing, and just think about whatever you want to do is fine, but within the context of what she describes. So again, There is no wrong way to do morning pages. These daily morning meanderings are not meant to be art or even writing. I stress that point to reassure the non-writers working with this book. Writing is simply one of the tools. Pages are meant to be simply the act of moving the hand across the page and writing down whatever comes to mind. Nothing is too petty, too silly, too stupid, or too weird to be included. The morning pages are not supposed to sound smart, although sometimes they might. Most times they won't, and nobody will ever know except you. Nobody is allowed to read your morning pages except you. And you shouldn't even read them yourself for the first 8 weeks or so. Just write 3 pages and stick them into an envelope. Or write 3 pages in a spiral notebook and don't leaf back through. Just write 3 pages. And write 3 more pages the next day. Although occasionally colorful, the morning pages are often negative, frequently fragmented, often self-pitying, repetitive, stilted, or babyish, angry or bland, even silly sounding. Good. All that angry, whiny, petty stuff that you write down in the morning stands between you and your creativity. Worrying about the job, the laundry, the funny knock in the car, the weird look in your lover's eye, this stuff eddies through our subconscious and muddies our days. Get it on the page. Morning pages are non-negotiable. Never skip or skimp on morning pages. Your mood doesn't matter. The rotten thing your censor says doesn't matter. We have this idea that we need to be in the mood to write. We don't. Morning pages will teach you that your mood doesn't really matter. Some of the best creative work gets done on the days when you feel that everything you're doing is just plain junk. The morning pages will teach you to stop judging and just let yourself write. So what if you're tired, crabby, distracted, stressed? Your artist is a child and it needs to be fed. Morning pages feed your artist child. So write your morning pages. 3 pages of whatever crosses your mind. That's all there is to it. If you can't think of anything to write, then write, I can't think of anything to write. Do this until you have filled 3 pages. Do anything until you have filled 3 pages. So Julia Cameron talks about how morning pages can be a form of meditation, which I love. And meditation has a lot of meaning to people depending on their background. And she does say that writing in this way can be a spiritual practice. So with that in mind, she says, we meditate to discover our own identity, our right place in the scheme of the universe. Through meditation, we acquire and eventually acknowledge our connection to an inner power source that has the ability to transform our outer world. In other words, meditation gives us not only the light of insight, but also the power for expansive change. It is impossible to write morning pages for any extended period of time without coming into contact with an unexpected inner power. Although I used them for many years before I realized this, the pages are a pathway to a strong and clear sense of self. They are a trail that we follow into our own interior, where we both meet our own creativity and our creator. Morning pages map our own interior. So that's what I wanted to share with you from the book itself. And again, if you're interested in reading more, I definitely recommend picking up a copy. Julia Cameron's fabulous. Okay, so I want to talk about my own personal experience with morning pages. So I bought this book back in August of last year, so it's been a year. And I started with the morning pages before I did anything else, which is what she recommends. There's other tasks and sort of artistic homework to do beyond that. And so I would say that with morning pages and those other things that she had me doing, just little exercises, and getting you out of your own way, having you think about things from a different angle. When those came together, I started to see these different changes happen in my life. And one of the biggest ones was I ended up selling my house. And I'm not saying that I sold my house because I started writing morning pages, but what I noticed is that I had a mental clarity that I didn't know I was capable of. And I would do the thing that she said, where I would sit down and I would just write and get all the stuff out of my brain. And then when I went to make decisions or work on my book or have coffee with a friend or whatever it was, I found myself being able to articulate what it was that I wanted, what I needed. And really, some of the toughest work with this was I didn't know the answer to that stuff. So I was able to get to know myself better. And my thing right now, especially, is after recovering from being in combat and having PTSD and feeling so shut off from the world for so long, I have these stories about myself that I tell myself. And right now, I'm working really hard to make sure that those stories are the most accurate and up to date that they can be. So if I tell myself, oh, I have anxiety and therefore selling my house would be way too stressful and I need to just stay put and have that stability, maybe that was true when I bought the house. But at this point last September, 5 years had gone by and that story wasn't really true anymore. And it's not that it was bad or good, it's just different now. And so Morning Pages helped me to get in touch with who I am right now on a daily basis. So after I sold my home, I moved in with some friends until my new place was going to be built. And I remember trying to plan this trip back home to California, and I was writing about it and stressed about it. And there was all this family drama, which is the same as it's always been. But with that insanity thing, I was hoping that this time the trip would be great and everything would fall into place and everyone would get along. And the drama was starting before I'd even gotten on the plane to go back. So I had a good talk with my friend and I wrote about it, and those things came together. And I realized that instead of going back to California, what I really wanted was to go to Ireland. And I had been talking about it and thinking about it and hoping for it for a really long time. I spent my R&R leave after my deployment in Ireland with some friends, but that was back in 2005. So now here we are in 2017, and I still hadn't ever returned. And I told myself I want to see everything else but Dublin because all I had seen the last time was Dublin. But this just seemed like it was some crazy idea out of nowhere. But really, when I started listening to what it was that I wanted and where I was at now, that was the answer that kept coming back to me, is I needed to just book that flight. So I did it. And I booked a flight, and a week later I was there. And it has changed everything for me. I'm currently living there, and I've been back and forth and I've been in Ireland since November, more than I've been stateside. And I feel like Morning Pages are a huge part of why that happened. And I know that that might sound like such an extreme to go from owning a home in Fort Collins and sort of doing things the same way for 5 or 6 years, but and then all of a sudden taking off and living in a different place. But what I was able to do while I was there is write my way through each day and soak up every moment, and I felt like I was more awake and alive and present because I was taking the time to sit down and write about the smell of the air and the sound of the waves and the color of the water right after the rain stops. Just all of these different things I was paying attention to on a level that I could not have before. And Morning Pages helped me to get there. And I'm not trying to say that my morning pages are fluid and pretty and brilliant and all these things because I'm a writer, hair flip. But really, it's like it doesn't matter. What I realized in all of this is that for me, Morning Pages have been the ultimate act of self-care. And it's something that I can do whether all of my friends are busy or my counselor can't quite be reached, or I can't go on a horseback ride or go to a boxing class or go dancing or any of the other tools that I always would try to incorporate in my life, and I still do. And I want to have access to them as much as I can, but sometimes it just comes down to you and a pen and a piece of paper. And that, generally speaking, you can have with you almost all the time. And I could lean on that and I could trust in it. And every day that I stuck to doing them, the more I trusted myself, that I was going to show up for myself, that I deserved that. and that I didn't really even need anybody else to show up for me or with me, but it was completely something I could do on my own. So it was learning how to lean into my life and what was going on and being a witness to it. And then it just grew from there. So this right now is the journal that I'm writing in. And what I've noticed is that these pages are a bit wider and longer than other journals I've had that are maybe, that will fit within this. So morning pages for me right now take about an hour. And sometimes I can knock them out in 15 minutes, depending on how big my journal is. And so that's kind of the nuts and bolts stuff that I want to talk about too, is I am a night owl, so I didn't like the idea of morning pages. I liked evening pages better. And I did that for a while, sort of, I don't know, out of defiance or something. And I would wait until the end of the day when I would tell myself I was most alert and awake and had gotten everything else done that I needed to, and then I would sit down and write my morning pages. But time and again, what would happen is I would fall asleep, or I would write a paragraph and feel like I was so exhausted mentally that I didn't have anything else to say. And it just turned into this thing where it was too easy to not do them. So I didn't start getting up any earlier because that's just not an option in my life. I won't do it. I said this is an act of self-care. So, but when I do get up, I carve out that time every morning to just knock them out. And what I noticed is even if I was groggy and half of what I wrote was about how tired I felt, at least I had them done and it set the tone for my day. It's like that book about making your bed first thing in the morning, and then you do the next thing and the next thing, and then you have a successful day. Morning pages can be that for you too. So for me, I struggle with procrastination and avoidance, and there have been days when I have not written my morning pages. It'd be so great for my ego if I could sit here and say I've never missed a day since I started them, but it's simply not true. And yet I have gleaned so much from being able to write every day that when I don't do it now, I genuinely miss it. I miss them. And I notice that it interrupts the flow of my day. And sometimes I'll still revert back to, I truly didn't have time first thing in the morning, so I will write them in the evening or in the afternoon, or even return to them throughout the day as long as they get done. But that's all an exception. The rule is just to get up and say what's on your mind for 3 pages and let it go. And then you can say, I've already done that. And really the rest of your day, it can go any way that it's gonna go, and you've already accomplished so much. It's a small thing, but it's a big thing too. So for me as a writer though, in terms of my book, there's been this struggle for years where I really hoped that from the dark place that I was in and living in for the longest time, with anxiety and depression, panic attacks, nightmares, insomnia, all of these things that were making me not feel like myself, I would tend to turn to the page, write for a little while, and get some of it out. And it would freak me out so much to be that honest and real with myself that I would shut the book and not return to it for months at a time. And then I would tell myself, well, I have to wait till I'm stronger, till I'm better, till I'm in the mood to write. And that's how it's now taken, oh gosh, I'd probably say 6 years of me talking about writing this book without actually doing a lot of work. But now with morning pages, I can say, with very rare exception, I write every single day. So this is about, again, trust and consistency. But what I've found in terms of writing my book is when I get those 3 pages out, when I turn and face the work that is my book, I'm ready for it. I'm clear, I'm concise, I know what I want to say. I'm not bogged down by, oh, I need to make a grocery list, or what errands do I have to run. It's like I've cleansed so that I can be clear. And it doesn't make the work easier, it just makes me feel like I'm more capable and strong to do it. So I just want to reiterate that this isn't about punishing yourself or giving yourself another thing to do that adds to the pile and makes you feel like you're not going to ever get everything done, and you're not trying hard enough, or there aren't enough hours in the day to do the things that you need to do. And then here, sit down and do this. But I'm telling you that it will inform everything else that you're doing, and you deserve to have this time. And later in the book, Julia Cameron talks about The page is where you go to rest. So I hope that you won't see this as a homework assignment, but rather as a retreat. And it can happen in your home, at a cafe, not in your car if you're driving, I would hope. But I mean, in so many just average places in your life, you can find rest and a respite and a place to just come back to who you are. And when you do it every day, I think that you're going to find there's so much inside of you that you didn't realize you were holding on to, and you can let it out. And I've learned over time that my book will be done, and I trust that I will get it published, and I think that it's going to help a lot of people. But I don't have the same pressure on myself anymore that I needed to write my book to heal myself. That's not my goal. Writing can be healing. It can be cathartic at its best. But really, this is more just about taking your temperature every day and taking it one sentence at a time. And so for me, not trying to write my way out of darkness, but really be in this light, healthy, strong place, and knowing that I can trust myself enough to dip back into the darkness and it's not going to take me down. So my hope for all of you is that you'll accept that writing can be a friend when you don't have anything else, or when you have everything else, or some variant in between. But this isn't meant to be a stressor. And I find that if I start rebelling against my morning pages and I don't feel up to it and I don't want to do it, you know what I'm going to say? That's when you need to do it the most. And I hope to hear back about how this affects you and what you take from it and how you grow. But I've already heard so much about how the retreat went for everybody, and I'm really excited to be any part of it at all. And I would also like to offer up my friend's blog. Her name's Neely, and we went to writing school together. And she actually just started a challenge on her blog to try to get people to do morning pages with her. So I'll give Laura the information so you can check out the link to that. But I love how she's sort of taking it and making it her own. Because again, you're not doing this to add up pages to turn into a book. It's so much more than that. It's about staying true to yourself and writing a little bit each day and being a witness to your own life, because your life matters. But with Neely, she has a lot of health issues, and she's been told, write down what you're eating, what you're drinking, how you're feeling, how often you're sleeping. And she's using them as a way to keep track of all of those things and keep just a barometer of what she's feeling. And I like that she's making them her own. And that's just one example. For me, some of my morning pages might end up in my book because I'm writing a memoir, which wouldn't that be nice? I'm already doing some of the work as I go. But again, they might be something completely different for you. And I'm so curious to see what they do in your life and what clarity comes from that. And I just thank you so much for your time and for listening. And I want to be a resource to you, even though I'm not going to be physically close by. I'm only just an email or a message away. So thank you so much for your time.